Welcome to the Operation Game Night podcast. And as we begin every podcast, it began with the forging of the games of power. 9 were given to the Eurogamers, lovers of wooden cubes and elegant efficiency, and victory by 3 points. 7 to the Ameritrash lords, masters of dice, plastic miniatures, and rules forgotten by round 2. 3 were gifted to the Wargamers, patient, grim, and willing to spend 6 hours resolving a single flank attack. 1 was bestowed upon the party gamers who laugh loudly, accuse freely, and never track score correctly. But they were all of them deceived, for another game was made. In the lands of Kickstarter, in the fires of crowdfunding, the dark publisher forged a master game, and into his box was poured all excess. Miniatures without number, stretch goals beyond reason, a solo mode, a legacy mode, metal coins sold separately. 1 game to rule them all, 1 game to bring them, to find them, 1 game to bring them all, and to the table bind them. I botched the dismount. Oh my God. Anyways,
Dude,
we're here
so
talking.
Close.
I know. We're here talking Fate of the Fellowship. Maybe I'll edit that one out.
Don't edit it out. That was beautiful.
It was terrible. Joining me, as always, is the Celebrimbor of the podcast, Clayton Gable. How you doing, Clay?
I'm doing great. A little weary from the long journey to Mordor.
Okay.
But we will get into that. I do want to applaud you on that intro. I know. We're a one-take podcast, and sometimes you nail it, and sometimes you get 95% of it, and that was a good 97%.
Sometimes you get to the very last 2 lines, and then you boof it like an idiot. Clay, are you familiar with Celebrimbor? Do you know who that is?
Oh God! Then if I saw the picture of him, I would remember. I can't. The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he is a elven craftsman.
From Rings of Power.
That helps create the One Ring of Power. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I remember. Yeah, I watched season 1, but season 2 kind of lost me a little bit.
Okay.
I tried to jump back in, and I could not remember everything that was going on.
Yeah.
What a world.
Yes. I see this debate on Reddit all the time about like what world is better, like Harry Potter or Chronicles of Narnia or Lord of the Rings. Like, you give it to J.R.R. Tolkien for just creating languages and then creating a world for his languages to live in. Like, he was a linguist at heart, not a fiction writer. So all that to say, let's talk about Fate of the Fellowship, which is why we really gather here today.
Oof. Travis.
Fate of the Fellowship. Hit me.
I'm stressed, man. Last week we talked about being in a board game slump. And one of our suggestions to get out of that slump wasn't to play one of the more complicated and challenging games that you've played in a long time to get out of that. So I did play Fate of the Fellowship. I have not. This is over 3, guys. Yeah. Over 3.0 weight wise on the old BGG scale. It is few and far between that this guy plays a 3.0 or higher anymore. So you'll have to bear with me through this. I am going to try to stay out of the weeds and kind of give you the high level thoughts on Fate of the Fellowship. But I've played this twice now. I played it once at 2 players and once at 4 players. And that's quite frankly enough. I think I can give you a good impression of it after those 2 plays.
Okay.
To be fair, so backing it up, this is a pandemic system game.
Yes.
Right? So Pandemic, the original, the
designed by Matt Leacock.
Yes, the killer co-op that started it all. I played that early on, maybe 9-8 years ago when I first got into board gaming. And it was good. I was like, this is a sufficient game, but it didn't do much for me after that. I got rid of it shortly after. I have not been up on the 700 variations of Pandemic that have existed since the original. I think I did play the Star Wars version of Pandemic with you once, Travis.
The Clone Wars one?
Yes, and I enjoyed that. Again,
it's fine.
It's few and far between the games that I actually don't like. So it was good. So I'm trying to dig back into my pandemic memory to connect the dots of what is the DNA that survived into this monstrosity that is Fate of the Fellowship, a Lord of the Rings pandemic system game. So from what I can tell, the key elements that are, in your base pandemic that still exist here there is a player deck of cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have different regions of the map on them. And then you have I think in pandemic, it's called the epidemic deck or
Yeah, something like that.
Or whatever. And they're like the bad cards you draw every round that kind of tell you where new diseases are popping up. And you still have that same kind of deck, 2-deck system in Fate of the Fellowship. You got your player cards with your different regions of Middle Earth, and then you have your shadow cards that kind of dictate where the bad stuff's happening. The shadow cards are going to, drive orc armies to different regions and move the Nazgul about the map, trying to search out Frodo. And those are the kind of things you're contending with every round. So on your turn...
So in lieu of a virus that's spreading, you are fighting the dark armies of Mordor that are repopulating as you defeat them and continuing to spread to neighboring areas on the map, like the zones, the regions, the states, whatever you call them.
And so different than the original pandemic, it's not... There was that, what's it called, like an outbreak that could happen when you have more than 3 cubes in one area. It would spread and go wild. There's nothing like that per se in this version of the game, but your orcs on the shadow cards, there's like these marching paths that show, okay, all the orcs on the path from Dunland to Isengard will all move like one marching spot. And if they ever get to what would be a haven for the Fellowship, so there's these havens, these are these good spots for the Fellowship. If they get to a haven and there's no troops there to defend the haven, they take out the haven and turn it into a shadow stronghold. Okay. And that's a really good way to lose a lot of despair, or to lose a lot of hope in the game, which is one of the ways as the Fellowship you can lose. You start with, 6 or 7 hope. You're inspired. You want to get rid of this stinking ring. And as the game goes on, and the Nazgul start searching for Frodo and the orcs are taking over your havens, you start losing this hope. And ideally, you hold on to just enough hope to get your Frodo and Samwise character to Mount Doom and dispel the ring. So very thematic version of the pandemic system. I was big into that. Just like in pandemic, you have 4 actions you can take on your turn. You can travel, which is moving to an adjacent location. You can fellowship, which is giving a card to another player matching the location or the region that you're in. You can prepare, which I don't know if this is in the original one. Maybe it is. I don't think it is. But you can discard a card when you're at a haven. You can discard a card that matches your region to take the symbol of the card as a token instead of a card. And this is a good way to, you have a hand limit of 7 cards. So instead of keeping that card just for its symbol, you can just discard the card, get the token, and it works just like the card.
Okay.
So there's the preparing. There is attacking. So if you're in a spot and you have friendly troops, so in this game you have your Elvish troops, you've got your Gondor troops, you have your dwarf troops. If you're moving around and you have a little posse of those troops and you go to a spot with orcs, you can attack. When you attack, you roll some dice. Some of your troops go, some of their troops go. It's a whole thing. We'll get into that. And then the last thing you can do is to overtake a stronghold and turn it into a haven. So this is a really good way to get hope back. So if you can get to a shadow stronghold, take out all the orcs that are there, and there's just friendly troops, you can spend 3 sword symbols and turn that into a haven for the Fellowship and get a bunch of hope. So there was something I meant to say. Oh, so how you win? I talked about the final thing you need to do, which is the thematic. Hey, the Frodo and Samwise character, which are in every game, they have to get all the way across the board, which is pretty darn far, to Mount Doom, and they have to have 5 ring cards or 5 ring symbols to discard when they get to Mount Doom.
Okay.
Which is a lot to try and acquire over the course of the game. Your main card suits are going to be rings. You have these cloak cards, which are stealth. You have these friendship cards, which have hearts on them. And you have the attack cards with the swords.
The daggers, yeah.
Yeah, the daggers. So those are the type of cards that are in the deck. Before you can do the Mount Doom mission, you do have 3 other objectives that you have to complete. And these are all like thematic story beats from the Lord of the Rings books and movies. Mm-hmm. So one of them is like gain the favor of the elves. So you have to have you and another character have to be in Rivendell, and you have to discard 3 heart cards like friendship. Hey, we're now friends with the elves. And that's like one of the objectives. Boom. And then you get to add 3 more elfish troops to the supply, and you gain a hope. Another one was like, what was like Faramir did something. There was like a Mad King, right? And you have to like unseat them. Yeah, one of them was that you have to get Faramir,
the steward of Gondor.
Yes, yeah. Yep. So you have things like that, which I've only played with like 8 of them now, but a lot of them are just you and another character have to be somewhere with some combination of resources and troops to complete the objective, and then there's 3 of those, and then the ring objectives is how you win.
I love that. That's like one of my favorite parts of this game. And granted, I own it. Have not played it in person. I've played it plenty on Board Game Arena. They do have like the solo mode on there and everything.
Yeah.
And the thematic beats to this are my favorite part, because they are optional, but they give you the best chance at victory. And so I really enjoy that you can pick and choose to do them. Yes.
No, you have to do. Maybe in the solo mode you can pick and choose them, but in the game as it's played that I played, you have 3 objectives you must complete, and then the final objective is always the Frodo and the rings in Mount Doom.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a whole like fistful of these. Like this game comes with like, I don't know, maybe like 20 of these objectives that make each game different. And speaking of making each game different, there's also like 13 characters you can play. And we'll just get into this because this is something that is divisive, maybe just in my mind. I haven't really been up on the popular opinion of this game, but you get 2 characters you have to play. It doesn't matter if you're playing with 4 players, 6 players, whatever. Everybody has 2 characters they're in charge of. And on your turn, you're meant to take 4 actions with one character and then 1 action with another character, which, depending on the level of brain power you have, can be an exciting prospect or not. Because each of your characters, have, maybe 4 or 5 different special abilities that you have to keep track of. So now, I've got Frodo and Samwise that have these 4 things. I've got Legolas that can do these 4 things. And now it's my turn. I'm like, there's this huge map. Yeah. I have these 2 characters with all these different special things. And I'm like, okay, do I take my 4 actions with this one and my 1 action with this one? What's the best way to puzzle this out to put me in the best scenario? And quite frankly, my biggest beef with this game is the fact that I have 2 characters, and I think it's plenty complicated, and there's plenty to think about with just 1 character. I know it adds a lot of like dynamics to the board, having all those characters moving about, and you probably need them to be able to do all the things that you have to do in this game, and like cover the scope of things that could crop up with the different objectives. But for me, that was the most frustrating part of the game, was trying to keep track of my 2 characters' abilities. And inevitably, it's best if I have an idea of what everybody else's characters can do, because, in in these games, you're working together and you're like, oh, coming up with plans. Oh my gosh, yes, Travis, you got the freaking dwarf that'll give me the extra action symbol if I go here. And my second character does this other thing that, oh boy, it's just a lot to keep track of for me.
I can't imagine playing this at the 5-player mark where people have all those characters on the board and like trying to decipher who does what and when and how you synergize actions like that. And I mean, admittedly, we have said many times on this podcast that Board Game Arena is not the correct way to learn games. And that's probably not the preferred way to play any game. But yeah, it's tough on Board Game Arena. I cannot imagine sitting around this giant board and the amount of just like in between turns, like fiddliness of moving all these troops around and making sure that the armies of Mordor are moving where they're supposed to and what activates when. I find this game really interesting because Pandemic, to me, always felt like a war game that was themed after like medical research, right?
Yeah.
Like public health. And this is like the undoing of that, where you're turning this like now public health game that's based on a war game back into a war game.
Yeah.
And it seems weird that he did it in that order. Like his Matt Leacock has a pedigree of co-op games. Between Pandemic, that's one of them. But he also did a bunch of the like Forbidden Desert and Forbidden Island games, which I find I love those games. Those are some of my like dark horse mass market games that you can buy at Target. Are those like Forbidden Desert, Island, Sky, Jungle was the last one. Those are like sleeper hits for me. And it seems odd that he's going back to like war gaming after all these different iterations of co-op. But talk to me about the Nazgul for a second, because the Nazgul follow a predictable path, but if they end up over the top of the ring bearer, right?
Yeah,
that's completely wrong.
No, you're right. It's that is, boy, that got away from us when we played this last night. I mean, so when you flip those shadow cards over, they can either march the troops along the line or they can move the Nazgul to where the ring bearer is.
Okay.
And essentially, whenever Frodo moves, and again, kudos on the thematics. I love it. Like, yes, the Nazgul are flocking towards Frodo, trying to find the One Ring. And every time Frodo wants to move, which he has to get really far in this game, and he has to go do Mount Doom, and it's a long ways away. Every time he moves, if there are Nazgul in his region or his destination region, you have to roll these search die.
That's right.
For every number of Nazgul that are there. And, if they're quickly, these Nazgul flock, like it goes from 2 to 4 to 6 really fast. And you have to roll 6 of these and you get the symbol that makes you lose hope.
Yeah.
Like each of the, you could lose. I mean, we lost on the first turn of the game last time. Like each of us had taken one turn. We were down to 2 hope just because of the way the Nazgul had gone to Frodo. We didn't have the resources that allow Frodo and Samwise are like a combined character, and they have a special ability where Sam can give aid and he can discard heart cards to ignore those bad symbols.
Oh, that's right.
But we didn't have that. And, it just so happened the shadow cards came up, the Nazgul moved, another shadow card came up that said you had to roll a search. And so we had to roll 6 die and we just ate it and took like 4 hope lost right off the bat. But when Frodo moves, if he has a cloak, he can spend a cloak resource to move in stealth, and you can avoid that search roll. So anytime Frodo's moving, you have to be cognizant of where these Nazgul are and where the Eye of Sauron is, because when the Skies Darken cards, which are like the outbreak cards or whatever that are in the player deck, come up, if the Eye of Sauron's on the spot with Frodo, you'll lose hope. And wherever the eye is where the Nazgul go to. So you're contending with this, you're contending with the orcs moving, you're trying to accomplish your objectives. There's a lot to think about, and there's a lot to puzzle out. And there's certainly a fair amount more luck than there is in probably any of the other Pandemic games. Not that I've played any but the original, but with the die rolling and all that stuff. So it does add to the thematic feel of it, having those moments. And I prefer that, honestly, than like a perfect puzzle that you can just figure out.
Yeah.
But it can get away from you
Yeah.
and it can not feel good. The other thing that's a complaint, and I noticed this the first time I played, was there, with all the things going on, somehow it still feels like there are turns where you're like, there's really nothing I can do. Like some of the actions like fellowship and attacking require you have certain action cards. And if you just don't have, or like be in certain regions with certain people, and if you just don't have that, really, a lot of times travel is like your only action. If you like don't really have anywhere you need to go, or it's like, okay, I gotta spend 4 actions. I'm kind of where I need to be. I'm not at a haven, so I can't discard a card to get a token. Like there's a lot of times where it felt like I'm just wasting actions.
Yeah.
And Mary felt the same way last night when she was playing as Frodo. Like she got pinned down in the Shire, like right off the bat with all these Nazgul.
Okay.
And she didn't have any of the cloaks to move. So one of her characters, like if she had moved and had to roll a search, we'd probably be done. So Frodo was essentially just sitting there waiting. And the other character, she was trying to figure out what to do every time for 4 actions with that. So I did find that there was a good amount of times that me or somebody else was like, I don't really know how to spend all 4 of these actions effectively. And we're probably just bad players at the end of the day. But I think it's worth noting, if you go pick this up and you're like, oh, I love Lord of the Rings, it can be a lot. And I don't know how I feel about this. Like I've got a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
But I also like it. Like it's a beautiful production. I love the art.
That dice tower looks so good.
The pieces are incredible. I mean, the wooden figures for all the different characters look great. All the tiny little troops moving about the map look great. I mean, the Nazgul are on these stands that are like awesome, varying in different heights, so you can have a bunch of different. So
they're like all in different poses and everything.
Yeah,
the production is top notch.
Yeah, and I love the thematic integration, and it really does feel like you're like setting out on this, really tumultuous journey, and it's going to be tough, and you don't know if you're going to make it, but it's hard, and it's a bear to set up. It's kind of a bear to teach somebody and, get them on board with their actions. And it certainly can fall into the same traps of normal co-op games where somebody's just like, yes, you go here, and we'll do this. And a lot of people just be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because I don't feel like thinking about the 75 different things I could do with my 2 characters. So yeah, there's a lot to like if you're a Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah.
And you like big thematic games. But if that's not for you, maybe stick with, regular Pandemic, some more streamlined engagement for sure.
See, it's interesting because like this is something that I wanted when they did the Clone Wars. Like I wanted something different that just felt like more thematic. And they put a couple of like big bad characters in there that you're trying to fight against, like the Ventress, and I don't know. They had a couple of other like bigger enemies besides just like the droids that were coming out. But it felt like more Pandemic, and there wasn't like a whole lot of theme baked in. This is like the completely opposite side of that spectrum. Like this is so thematic to a T. Everything, the production is beautiful. They made it like this is a special production of like that Pandemic system. And it's really, I think this one's going to stick around for a while because I love Lord of the Rings, and I got rid of that Star Wars version, the Clone Wars version, like very quickly thereafter we played it. And this one's going to stick around for a while because it's worth it just to keep that. Like that dice tower looks good. The minions look good. Like everything about this is put so much love and care into that Lord of the Rings IP, and it's cool to see it so heavily integrated into a system that is approachable. And
Yeah.
I mean, you could get people to look at this on a table and say like, yes, I want to play that.
Yeah.
I want to try that at least.
Yeah. It's built on a strong foundation.
There you go. That's good.
Yeah. And its core gameplay is not a lot to wrap your head around. Okay. Like on your turn, it's pretty simple, 4 actions, but just to actually play it well and to know what's going on, it's a bit complex. So it's over 3.
Yeah. I'm sure you listened to Decision Space this week where they're talking about like weight versus depth and how people conflate the two. And is this a heavy game in that it takes a heavy lift to learn, or is it a in-depth game where like exploring everything that this game has to offer would take you multiple plays? Like it can be both, I guess, but how would you describe this game in terms of weight and depth?
Oh my God. Yeah, this isn't Decision Space, Travis. I know, but I can't contend with these guys.
I really liked it because it was thought provoking, right? Like
it was.
We use those two interchangeably sometimes, and that's not the right way to do it. Like the way that they described it, kind of in synopsis, is weight is like the lift it takes to learn the game and to know all the rules inside and out. And so like a game can be shallow but have great weight because it's complex and obtuse and hard to learn. Depth is like I can play a simple game that has a lot of depth and that like it has a lot to offer, but I have to play it so many times to like understand all the nuances. Like Jared would probably say that what's the freaking the game that he like his favorite games all have great depth because he has learned them inside and out, right? Like he knows every little crevice and like the odds of certain cards coming up when he plays Feast for Odin or these other games that he loves. Like he has explored the depths of those games. Do you think that this game has great, like, is there a heavy lift to learn it? And does it offer enough like replayability is probably the word that we use more often for depth.
Yeah. I mean, I think how does one consider the addition of like just blunt force replayability features into a game, right? Like how do you factor that in? Because they throw in 25 different objectives that theoretically add to the replayability, but does it add to the depth? I don't know. I mean,
but do those like different, objectives that you have to obtain, do they offer anything different in terms of gameplay? Or is it like I'm doing the same thing to achieve them? They just look slightly different. Like I need these tokens versus these two or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Are they offering so much difference?
Yeah. I've only played with a few of them, but from what I could tell, they mainly felt like, hey, we just need to be in this spot versus that spot. And we need to have these resources versus those resources. It's just like a checklist of things that needed to be accomplished. And I mean, that does add to replayability, but does it add to depth? I don't know. And I don't know that I can write something off as not having a lot of depth after 2 plays. But I can say weight wise and complexity, like it is a burden to know the rules relative to my current gaming stature. So it is heavy in that way. And I want to play it more, so maybe it does have depth. I left feeling like I wanted more, even though I disliked some of it.
Yeah, and I think that the depth might come from like knowing the odds of those skies darkening cards coming up, or the synergies between the different heroes that you can play as. Like, I think that stuff adds a lot of replayability, even if it's not just like changing objectives and stuff like that. I think when games offer asymmetric abilities between characters like that, I think you can create a lot of depth very quickly with just slight.
To me, that feels like pseudo depth.
You think so?
Like, I don't know. I feel like when you're just like changing up abilities and things, to me that's like fake depth.
Okay, interesting.
That's like it's like putting yourself in a float tank.
But it depends. we're gonna end up in this like endless spiral, but like
Yeah.
it depends on the nuances of those characters and how good, like,
Yeah.
what is the max like ceiling level skill that you can have with that certain character, like playing as Aragorn or whatever. If I play as Aragorn, I know that I'm going to have a 90% chance of winning this game versus like, what is the floor to learning that character? And if I pick this character up for the very first time, how good am I going to be? And like, if there is a significant difference between me playing a character for the first time and me playing it for the 100th time, and the difference odds between me winning and losing, I think that means that there's depth and there's like some level of mastery there.
Yeah, probably. And I will say, this isn't necessarily to your point, but when you bring up the character combinations, it was a cheat code. They suggest on the intro game that the character playing with Frodo and Sam also play with Legolas. Well,
Okay.
old Legolas has an action that you can take every turn that lets you just take a stealth cloak for free.
Nice.
Which lets, as Frodo and Sam, you need those to move around freely. And if you're not drawing those and you don't have Legolas as a guy that can just grab them for you, your life's going to be a lot harder. So, yeah, it can definitely vary widely in the difficulty based on my limited experience with how those characters interact with each other.
Okay. I'd be curious to pick Mike's brain about this one, because I know that he played this a whole bunch when he first got it, and I'd like to get his take on it. So, Mike, if you're listening, let us know. And if you are listening, yeah, if you are listening at home and you have played Lord of the Rings: Fate of the Fellowship, let us know what you thought about it. Let us know if you think that it has great weight or depth, and let us know what your preferred character combinations are. Did we do it?
We did it.
We have been talking about Lord of the Rings, Fate of the Fellowship, published in 2025 by Z-Man Games. I have been your host, Travis Smith. He has been my co-host, Clayton Gable. This has been Operation Game Night, and we are out.